Hi, this is I'm.
Once you know it's for real,
I know.
you're like,
Okay, let's stop. Hi, I'm Kirsten Jones,
and I'm Susie Walton.
and this is our podcast. Hashtag Raising Athletes with Kirsten and Susie.
Our passion is supporting parents and raising not only strong athletes, but extraordinary people.
Join us each week as we tackle all topics youth sports, including everything from early specialization and overuse injuries
To helping our kids feel empowered and learn how to advocate for themselves, not only in the classroom and on the court, but at dinner tables and in their communities.
We'll be talking to coaches, athletes, parents,
And anyone else who will speak to us.
about their experiences with youth sports and their paths to success.
And even more importantly, their failures. Yes, we're going to get into the gritty details of what went wrong so that we can all learn from it. Teach our kids
And ourselves.
how to do better next time.
Because in the words of Maya Angelou, when you know better, you do better. So welcome to Raising Athletes, because we love to win too.
Let's do this.
Hello and welcome to the Raising Athletes podcast. My name is Kirsten Jones. I'm a peak performance and sports parenting coach. I love helping people figure out what's getting in their way, what's holding them back, helping them release those limitations and moving forward to get what they want in life. I'm also the proud author of a newly released book about 6-8 months ago called Raising Empowered Athletes, which you can download on Audible and buy anywhere you find your books. Today's guest, we're going to talk about all the pieces that I have in the book, which are how do we support these athletes at the beginning, but also as they go through the journey. And Rett Larson works with the most elite athletes in volleyball. And so I'm so excited to have you on all the way from snowy Utah today to talk about how do we help these athletes. Thanks for being here, Rett.
Oh, Kirsten, I'm really excited to be here too. You mentioned that I'm currently working with elite athletes, but I really cut my teeth coaching, working with young athletes. And it was before I became more well known as a volleyball guy or working in foreign countries guy. I was known as a working with young athletes guy because that was definitely my passion. So this is a really fun opportunity for me to talk shop with somebody who knows a lot more about it than I do.
Aw. Well, let's start with the beginning. I always love hearing the backstory because I think part of this is about sports, but a lot of this, we have a lot of athletes listening too. And again, I had a dream to play on the national team, and I never did, but I ended up at Nike. And so we don't know where our journeys will take us, but I believe it's important to dream big. So where did this dream of working with professional athletes start for you?
Yeah, it started kind of innocuously that I was living in Washington, D.C., and I was working at a Gold's Gym, and I wanted to get a free membership, so I offered to teach a sports conditioning class. And that, like a couple days later, an assistant coach for Marymount volleyball team was in my class, and she said, "Would you be interested in being our strength and conditioning coach?" And so all of a sudden, my little side hustle turns into something that I'm obsessing about. Like at the time I was working in law firms, I thought I'd be an attorney, but I was, sneaking, like I'd go to Barnes and Noble and pick up the plyometric books and books on getting stronger, more explosive. And I just got obsessed with it. And eventually my mom was the one who clued me in that I could go and get a master's degree in a field of exercise science. And I didn't even know that existed. I did that. I still didn't I guess I probably had dreams of working with elite athletes, but like I mentioned before, my first big break came because I got two big breaks. I'll be really quick with this, but I living in Atlanta, Georgia, and I get my first personal trainer job. And
How old are you?
It's my at this point I'm probably 25 or so. I really thought I was going to do the attorney thing for 5 or 6 years, so 4 or 5 years. So I'm probably 26, something like that. And
Did you go to law school? Had you gone to law school? Oh, okay.
Luckily, I have a family full of lawyers, and my dad was so smart. And he said, before you decide to become a lawyer, I want you to work in law firms for years and decide that that's for you, which was just such prescient advice because working in law firms, I determined pretty quickly that I loved the people. Like I loved being around smart people, and there was a lot of smart people there. I learned a lot of things, and I fell in love with an attorney there, and that's why I moved to Atlanta because one of the attorneys. But I determined that a lot of attorneys, especially young attorneys, either love their job and their outside life isn't great, or their outside life is awesome and they're not doing really well at the attorney thing. And I wanted much more of a happy 20-something-year-old, 30-something-year-old life. And I didn't want to be stuck in dusty, document review closets. So I determined it wasn't for me. But I was in Atlanta with my girlfriend, and I got a job as a personal trainer. And at this gym, they have a bunch of elite NBA basketball players. And on my second day, when I have no clients, the Indiana Pacers strength and conditioning coach comes in, and he asks the head of strength and conditioning, the head personal trainer at this gym, hey, any of these guys? She's like, I got 5 players from the Pacers that need a place to train in the off season. And our head of personal training was like, oh, well, you've come to the right place. We have 7 people on our top row that have been here for decades working with NBA players. You see all the NBA players they've been with. And the guy's like, great. Which one of them has their NSCA, National Strength and Conditioning Association, Certified Strength and Conditioning Specialist certification, like the highest? And she said, oh my God, we have 23 personal trainers, and only the guy that started 2 days ago has his CSCS. And he said, well, it's our policy. We only let our guys train with CSCS certified. So on my second day as a personal trainer, I get 5 NBA players. So that becomes my first big break because one of my NBA players ends up becoming the NBA's most improved player of the year award that year. And so I get a ton of unnecessary credit. Like I was the worst personal trainer in the world. I was just following his little sheet that the Pacers are giving me. I'm just moving the pin in the stacks of weights and just counting out reps for him. I'm a terrible amateur personal trainer, but I get a bunch of credit for it. And that ends up, and so the next year I end up training him in this. I end up going back to Atlanta to be with my girlfriend in that next summer in between when I was in grad school. And I find a better gym to train him, and I convince him to come over to this gym. Well, this gym ends up franchising out. It's an actual sports performance training facility. You see them a lot now with the big turf indoor field and the weight room and a little sprint track and like all the bells and whistles that make strength and conditioning coaches like myself smile when you compare them to like a Globo gym where we've been before. And so I convinced him to go there. And that's where I kind of get hooked into a franchise that specializes in training young athletes. And franchises out that one center where I decided to train him becomes 75 centers over 2 years. And because I kind of interned under the guy that was in charge of it, and he's a guru of speed and strength and conditioning, I become a pretty easy guy to hire. And so that starts my journey with training young athletes. And I stay in that job for 12 years. And at the time, I go from just being like one of the many trainers in that gym to being the head of performance for the network of coaches. So, and at that point, that's where I'm giving speeches about how to train young athletes and what we should be looking for to kind of create not only good young athletes, but, hopefully better human beings. I'm taking too long with the early story.
No. I
was there for 12 years, and then I get an opportunity to go to China. I go to China for 7 years. I start working with really elite athletes. China for 7, that gets me to the volleyball team for the last 3 years in China. I was just with women's volleyball. They end up having an amazing run and winning the World Cup as well as the gold in Rio at the Olympics. And after that, I decide to work with one of my best friends who'd just taken a job as the head coach of the Netherlands. And so I go to the Netherlands for 2 years, but I promised the Chinese team I'll come back. So I go back to China and then go back to the Netherlands. And then the Netherlands coach loses his job. I get hired by the Germans, and that's where I am today.
So how's your Chinese? Do you speak Chinese?
Chinese is pretty good. How's yours? You're pretty good too.
I used to speak Japanese, but no Chinese. But that's impressive.
Can you read it? Because they can read the same characters. They just can't. When I was in school in China, I had a lot of Japanese people in there. It would frustrate me that they could read the characters so easily, but But yeah, the words are all different. Yeah,
So
it's
I
tough.
was just at
My
our 30-year reunion. So no, I can't read anymore. But I used to be able to read about 500 kanji, which is what they said you
wow.
needed to know in
Yeah.
order to read. So yeah, it's, muzukashii desu ne. It's like very, very difficult. The Chinese and even the Japanese say to you like, "Oh, why do you speak this language? It's very difficult." Like, so
Yeah.
in Chinese you hear the same, right? So that's really,
Yeah.
really cool.
In China, we had to, for the first, I think, year and a half or two in China, I had a translator. I mean, they give every foreign coach a
Yeah.
translator when they get there, but it's so cumbersome to coach with a translator to have to, the
Yeah.
nuances kind of let, and it just is so slow, and it doesn't feel like you're connecting as well with the athletes when it's through someone else. So I
Right.
pretty quickly started taking classes, and the nice thing about China is that things like that are dirt cheap. To have a tutor even coming to your house every Tuesday, Thursday when you get off work
Yeah.
is just
Nothing.
ridiculously cheap. So it gets a little easier to get into it. And like I said, I was there for 7 years, and once I was with the volleyball team, I didn't need a translator anymore. So my Chinese is very good if we want to talk about strength and conditioning or speed or jumping or
Yeah.
volleyball. But if I have to go and get a haircut, I can start sweating through it a little bit. I'll get a little bit,
And
things like that.
you're Dutch. You Klein Beetje, right? Like they all speak perfect
Oh,
English. So
It's
like
they
yeah,
spoil you. Yeah, the
yeah,
Dutch spoil me. The Germans spoil me. Like I
yeah.
don't have to really use it too much unless I want to get better at eavesdropping.
That's awesome. Yeah, we lived in Amsterdam for 6 years, and you get in the taxi, and I don't speak much English. So what do you think about your president? You're like, oh, actually, you do speak English.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly right. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so let's dive into. We want to get to the pro athletes, but first, let's. Really, what my book is about is raising empowered young athletes, and one of the big chapters in there is about sports specialization and what we've seen in the last 30 years of going to. In our generation, where I played every sport in the season, we didn't even have club. I grew up in Montana. The club didn't exist, so I played basketball in the fall and volleyball in the winter, and ran track in the spring, and skied and rode horses, and you just kind of did whatever was in front of you. And now, my joke, not joke, is the kids coming out of the delivery room and the parents are great because they're going to be an amazing golfer, right? And I just spent the last 6 months going around the country. It doesn't matter whether you're in Dallas or Buffalo or Portland, Oregon or Los Angeles, the same story, which is, oh, we've hired a private coach. Oh, awesome. And, my husband's like really certain that he's going to be really good at soccer. Okay, great. So how old is he? Well, he's 5. Okay, so what are we doing, right? So what we're seeing on the other end of it is the breakdown of the body, because these kids at 18, at 20, at 25 have the bodies of a 40-year-old, who's played pro sports, right? Tommy John syndrome in the 70s didn't happen unless you were a pro pitcher. Now there are 12-year-olds that are having Tommy John surgery. So what did you see in those 12 years that you were working with these young athletes, and what advice do you have for parents around that?
Yeah, and that was one of our biggest marketing pushes for this company that I worked with, is that we were going to be the anecdote to sports specialization. That even if you had the visions of Tiger Woods in your head and you were having golf lessons, we were not going to be doing golf specific training. We were going to be creating all around athleticism, and that we could counterbalance the overemphasis on one sport that your kid might have. But like any good practitioners, we were always preaching the benefits of playing multiple sports. And and you did see, geez, it's not even close. Like the amount of injuries that we're having these days, younger and younger, because of the sport specialization. I mean, China there's no better kind of example of that than China. I have pictures that I use in presentations of the fact that after a tournament, like after a game, when all of our athletes are stretching at the end of the court, like, and they're taking off all of the dozens of pieces of equipment that are holding their bodies together. It looks like, I used to like make a joke. It looks like the Autobots and the Decepticons just had a huge battle, and there's just hardware just strewn all about. Like half the girls have like the big knee braces. They all have ankle braces. They all have shoulder tape. They're being just kept together. And that's because in China, that's the only way, is to specialize in sports. My wife is Chinese. She played for the Chinese national team for 2 Olympics. And, her body is all beaten up. She was the moment she started her growth spurt and they realized that her father is 6'6" and her mom is 6'3", they knew she was going to be a giant. And she got to play basketball for 2 years before they decided, no, you're going to be a volleyball player. And that started when she was 12. And she's been playing no sport other than volleyball. I mean, we're here in Utah skiing. Like, there's a world of sports she has to learn anew. She's learning how to swim for the first time. She's learning how to ski and snowboard for the first time. She's learning how to play racket sports for the first time because she was never able to do any of that. Now, if a Chinese coach were right. Yeah, go
Sorry,
ahead.
I was curious about their system. Do they do what the Russians do, where you get sent to a school, an academy to train?
Yeah.
And okay, same system. Okay.
Yeah, they get sent to the specialized sports schools, which are an enormous and you may think that as a parent you would be like, absolutely not. No, I'm not going to have my kid now just go to actual school for 2 hours a day and then play sports for the other 7, right, or 5 or whatever it is, because that's the reality, is that you stop getting the education. But it's such an honor to be put into the sports schools. It's such a, there's so much upside financially if the kids actually do well. I mean, Melody, my wife, getting taken to those sports schools, created a lot of financial opportunities for her whole family. There are, I used to work with the Chinese gymnasts, and there are Chinese gymnasts, and that's a different specialization, because that's a sport that peaks when you are in your teens, right? You have your most opportunity to earn medals, like from below 17 years old, according to the Chinese, right? 17, 18, because it's so advantageous to be small. And in those situations, those girls are taken out of their houses at 8 years old. They call their parents on the weekends and have trouble understanding mom's accent. It's really, really shocking. But if a Chinese gymnastics coach were here, if a Chinese diving coach were here, they would laugh at the thought. They would laugh thinking that Americans are trying to make potential gymnasts play a lot of sports, because the Chinese would be like, we're going to absolutely stomp you in Olympics if you guys are wasting these athletes' times in very technical sports where 10,000 hours pays off, and you only have a few years until your peak. They're like, fine, go waste your time playing tennis. We're going to have our girls, and we're going to be smoking you in the Olympics at diving and gymnastics. So that is the really obscure counter argument to this, but it would be unfair if I didn't mention it. But for the vast majority, but they also don't care if those girls need to be in a wheelchair at their 22 years old. So there's no, for their longevity and health, no consideration for that, which is why it's not really part of our conversation today. We all know that it's to avoid a lot of those injuries, that you have to counterbalance that either with playing something fun that you enjoy, or I guess at the very least being a part of a conditioning program that actively works to counterbalance some of that overuse.
Well, and obviously your wife doesn't know anything different, so maybe this is a silly question, but now that she's past all of that and looking back, and you're raising a 4-year-old daughter, what's the human side to that? Does she just have great memories of that? Is that what she would want for her child, or how does that sit?
The good memories for her are only born out of teammates, because China also had the one-child policy, so no one grows up in China. Very few people grow up with a brother or sister, and the nice thing about being a part of a team is that you have a bunch of sisters. So you and the adversity of being part of that system, the long hours, the kind of brutal conditions, can forge a bond, a team bond that's different in China than it is other places where there are other opportunities. She really has a sisterhood of great friends. But when my wife and I were deciding where we'd live, it wasn't even a decision. I can't even recall a conversation. She couldn't wait to leave China. She would never allow our daughter to be schooled in China or raised or play for a Chinese sports team. My wife, unfortunately, has no love for the game of volleyball anymore. Right?
Oh,
she
really?
played she has a bronze medal in the Olympics. She has no love for volleyball. I would have to beg her to go out and play a little beach volleyball with me. and she just
Really?
does
Oh,
not bring up happy memories of the sport, which is really sad. Luckily, she still loves playing other sports. This is fun for her to get
yeah.
into other things, but I still love volleyball. It'd be cool to be able to play with my wife. I mean, she's 6'4". I mean, we do pretty well, I think.
Yeah. Let's go.
Right.
Yeah. Or is her body
Leaving money on the table here.
Right? No doubt. You could have a total side hustle. Is her body even able to still play though? That's the other piece.
Yeah, it is, because
Okay.
she's had a couple of years of rest, and she can play, but it is, it's not fun for her. Yeah, it hurts a little bit, and it's recovering pretty well. She's been doing lots of yoga and stuff, so she's getting back.
So what you saw in Atlanta and working with young athletes and then comparing it to what's going on in China, like what advice do you have then to parents having seen both sides of it? Okay, you can get the results, but at what cost? I mean, my oldest is 23, and I can think of clearly 4 friends of his that at 23, their bodies are completely broken. Like torn knees, hips, backs, one needs knee surgery, one's had sports hernia. Like, I think, again, anecdotally, it feels like we're going to wake up 10 years from now and this whole generation of athletes is going to be like, I can't even go out and kick the soccer ball with my kid, right?
Absolutely. I fear that too. I fear that I think it's going to be a gold mine for orthopedic surgeons and chiropractors in a couple of years, with all of these kids that are going to be limping around after their kids. It is it's a fundamental problem with the system. I think the research is pretty clear that if you want to have a completely mediocre golfer at 27, then make them the best 14-year-old golfer in the nation right now. There's so few kids that have won the World Series of Little League that ever go to make the majors, right? This is pretty well researched, that if you peak too early, that too many things are in front of you. And unfortunately, the outliers like Tiger Woods get a lot of talk, but I know that there's lots written on, like Roger Federer, who is the guy and Djokovic, who have played every sport in the world and didn't really get into tennis until they were 17, 18, when their bodies were more mature and they could, and they just had a bigger library of movements, a bigger library of athleticism than athletes that had specialized too early. Some of the circus movement that you see out of some people is just born out of having played a ton of cool sports that required a more broad movement library.
So when you were working with younger athletes, did you then work on things that weren't necessarily like a volleyball athlete, that weren't necessarily a volleyball move, to encourage growth in other areas?
Right. And this is something that I talk about a lot. One of the things that I think I'm known for is that I use what to a lot of coaches I think is kind of a thrown away portion of training, which is the warm up. I take a lot of time thinking about how I can better utilize the 5, 10, 15 minutes before actual practice starts to actually make a better athlete out of even elite athletes. So if my athletes never grew up doing what I think are kind of common things, like maybe some tumbling or being able to throw a frisbee, well, the warm up is where I get to spend time kind of pushing the boundaries of their athleticism, exploring the messy outer edges of those things by introducing a frisbee in warm up, which is warm up. The bar for having a good warm up before a volleyball practice is real low. You just have to get their tissues warm. I mean, there's no, for every coach with a precious warm-up that I think is just the best thing ever and should always be done every time, there's just not a lot of research to back up that great warm-ups really keep people from getting too hurt. As long as they're warm, it's fine. And so with that said, I kind of use my warm-up. I think of my warm-up time as being a very malleable time. And that's the time that if I have a team that's slow, then my warm-up needs to look like a speed training session, like a track athlete might do. If my athletes are weak, then my warm-ups can be times where we microdose a little bit of strength. If my athletes are stressed out, then we should be playing PE games, we should be playing dodgeball and stuff. If, if they've never thrown a Frisbee, that's awesome, because that means they're going to have to be reacting and chasing Frisbees all around the gym, which is just going to be wiring more reactivity into their bodies, which is not unlike volleyball. So I spend a lot of time thinking about all of the things that we can be doing. My head coach feels the same way, where he will design volleyball specific games that are only being played opposite handed, or only being played with kind of chicken winging the ball over, all these things that people think are, or kicking the ball over. Like, we do a ton of these things just to kind of push their athleticism and build more movement skills. And we have fun doing it. And then that's the side thing. That's kind of the side benefit, is that the athletes come to practice every day and they have no idea, why we have horseshoes in the corner, and that why, there's 7 live chickens running around. Well, we're going to do something weird today, and it's going to be interesting. And you can put the foam rollers and the mini bands away, because we're gonna get weird for the first 10 minutes.
Practice isn't over,
but it's not going to be something you can sleepwalk through. Yeah, sorry, yeah. Kirsten, what'd you say?
Got to catch all the chickens before we start practice.
Yeah, right. Rocky style. I don't know why I brought up that example. People are going to be asking me about the chicken thing.
Which, if you're listening, go check out his Instagram page, Rettasaurus, because he posts all these great, and I love it. And I coach little 9 and 10-year-olds. I'm taking a little break right now, but here's what's wrong with club sports. We're paying so much money. So we've got all this money invested into it as parents. And then the clubs feel the pressure of, okay, the parents have paid all this money, so they need to get a bang for every single minute they're in there. And we only have the gym time for this window. So we're specifically told you cannot use the gym time for anything but volleyball specific drills. We don't have time for anything else. And yet they're 9 and 10. So when you're doing that with 23, 25, 28-year-olds, and you see them laughing and having fun, and you watch the cortisol go down in their faces, how much better volleyball are they going to play when you introduce the ball after they've just had fun chasing each other, chasing the chickens around the court, right? Like, now all of a sudden they can really play. I mean, I think the best warm-up is to play freeze tag, where you have to dive through each other's legs. You're playing volleyball, you're doing drills, right? And the girls are laughing. And every single time I would do that, I would like, okay, we're not supposed to do this, but let's do it anyway. And they would come in like, can we do the freeze tag? Can we do the freeze tag? I don't care if they walk out of there and they don't remember anything about volleyball. What they remember is, that was fun. I want to come back.
If I have given one piece of advice to parents or to coaches that have that age, or actually almost any age up to, I don't know, whatever, is to play more tag. I think tag is one of the best. For one, there are 100 variations of tag that keep it fresh, but just the evasion kind of skills that you learn, and the reading people, reading body, like reading feints and things like that, just pays dividends in so many sports. Having to absorb force and react. I mean, for all of the time wasted doing stupid cone drills, and so where you know exactly where you're supposed to be going every time, none of that holds a candle to a game of tag, where you are having to try to anticipate where a body in front of you is going to go, and then actually have to have true reactivity instead of this fake reactivity of going around, an agility ladder or a serpentine cone course. And you mentioned freeze tag. I play tag with my athletes constantly. And it's just, imagine all the agility ladder drills you've done, except making it fun, where people are laughing and smiling and giving each other crap for being bad at something or good at something. And it's just, like, for me, it's all upside when you take.
And I dare you to play a game without laughing. Yeah. Right? Like, it's fun. Like, you're having a good time. You're trying to juke each other out. Then they all want to like try a different team. And then I like keep shortening the court so they can only be in this area, right? Like, you start changing the rules on them and they have so much fun. Yet I have a story in the book, a quick anecdotal story about the 9-year-olds that were playing baseball, and they played the game and then they had some extra time. And so the coach said, oh, great, we're going to play one more inning, but we're not going to keep score. And the 9-year-old comes up and he says, so can we have fun now?
Boy, that is telling. I think, Kirsten, I think there's a fundamental problem, and I caution young coaches about this, and that's if a bunch of parents are paying money and they give me six of their little 9-year-olds, and they expect me to put them through a warm up and some speed training and some strength and conditioning, there is this expectation, I think, from them that it's going to look like military, like I'm going to have total control over the group, right? They would want me to have control. They think that possibly I wouldn't. So the way I counterbalance that is I have them all in a perfect line, and I'm cueing everything. If we're going to do a walking knee hug, I'm like, right leg balance, good, eyes straight ahead, perfect. Grab that left knee, big straight back, big tall chest, looking good. Can you close your eyes for 2 seconds? Try it. 2, 1, great. Open your eyes, good. Foot down, good. Balance on the other. All right. Can you arm swing? Right. That's what a parent would love to see. And that's, I think, probably a good version of that. And that was me for 10 years, teaching my coaches how to cue young athletes so that it looks like military, but that looks like what your expectation of strength and conditioning or a warm up before something.
Yeah.
But that could come at the expense of actual. They want to see the cones on the ground, right? The parents want to see the cones on the ground. They want to see all the variations that I know how to do in an agility ladder. They want to see mini hurdles out, and then I make them do all of the standard things, and I show them 4 things they've never seen before so they can talk to their friends about how innovative Coach Rett is over at the child performance training area, right? But that, I think, is in my older age with more wisdom and hindsight, I think that came at the expense of their athleticism. I honestly think that ditching all that stuff for, like we mentioned, like a tag variations or any other ways to stimulate them while also being authentically reactive, also being authentically agile, would have created better athletes. It just would have looked messier to the parents out there. And the parents out there probably would have actively thought, why am I paying so much money for tag? So we have a problem in the system, right? Hopefully if you're doing your job right, then the tag is a supplement, and they're getting better at tag because you're also doing some actual real work maybe in the weight room and doing some real work with some other plyometric work, or you're doing some other real stuff that makes the tag look better. But honestly, the expectation, there's this. Yeah, I think that young coaches and a lot of coaches think that they have to meet the expectation of what the parents think, and that might not be the best.
What age would you start introducing anything but body weight? What is that, more into the teens, or what age do you want them in the weight room doing anything besides plyometrics, or what is the perfect trajectory?
Early. I also think if you're doing things well, having kids throwing medicine balls, like I would have my 4-year-old daughter doing that. Like, I love challenging her to lift stuff heavy above her head, and we see logs and stuff and rocks and put this up on there. And just last night, we got a big sack of rice here for all the people staying here, and I for 5 minutes coaching her to try to put it on a shelf, and like all of this, like as long as the mechanics are good, then there's no harm in doing it. In fact, there's a ton of upside. It's a little bit of a myth that you have to worry about like the growth plates and anything problematic like that. Like it's more stimulating for growth, to get all of the good hormones that rush through you when you're having fun playing around with weights. What I don't think is that you should be necessarily doing things that have so much structure. Like if you're thinking of, oh man, my kid would hate like even a light barbell and things like that, then absolutely not. Or you have a crappy coach that's not making it fun. I think that as long as it's fun, as long as it's something that my daughter feels great about and likes doing, then there is no problem having her. Like, I'm constantly trying to get her to jump off of higher walls than she wants to. So I'm constantly asking my daughter, being like, you can do this. You can do this. I know it's taller than you. Just do it. You're fine. You're fine. You're fine. Like, you would build bulletproof athletes if every year of their life, if at 2 years old, they need to be able to jump off the second step in the house, and by 6 years old, they need to be able to jump off the sixth. if every single day of their 3-year-old life they have to jump from the third step to get down, you would have an
Yeah.
athlete that could absorb force so well, I'd never worry about their ACL tearing during a
That's,
volleyball career. But it has to be fun. Like,
yeah.
if it's short, then I'm out. But if you can make it engaging, like all weight training is on the table, all plyometrics are on the table, all of that is totally awesome for an athlete, a young athlete, as long as they love it.
There's a couple viral videos that I'm sure you've seen that always pop up every once in a while, but one is a little girl and it's Russian or something, and she's talking to herself and he keeps raising the level of it, and she keeps I can do this, and she, she keeps missing and he just keeps letting her do it. And to your point about pushing them outside of their comfort zone, and if you start learning how to get outside of your comfort zone at 4 or 5, and just in things that it's not about the trophy, it's not about getting on that team, it's just about getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. Like, what a gift, right?
I couldn't have said it better myself. Well, this is why you've written a book about this subject, is that you were saying that is absolutely on fire, is that yeah, being comfortable being uncomfortable, being comfortable taking risks in low risk environments, like being unafraid to put yourself out there, I think is it's a gift to give any kid. It's a fine line though, because most of the parents that care about their kid being sporty might have had an upbringing where it is a lot about winning. Like it's hard to find that parent that loves sports so much but doesn't care about the winning side of it necessarily for a long time, and cares more that the kid is having a ton of fun. I think it's more in vogue now, but it's tricky.
So I have a theory. Let me know if you agree with this. But in my research and life, and I live in Los Angeles, and so I'm surrounded by professional athletes. But what I find are the higher somebody played, the higher the level they played, the more they lean back as a parent with their own kids, generally, because they know what it takes. They know the hard work. And, they're the ones that Steve Kerr is like, yeah, if he doesn't want to play, he doesn't need to play, right? Like they realize that I can't want it more than you do. And chapter 2 is whose dream is it? And what you see are these parents that you can tell they want it, and the kid doesn't know what they want yet. It doesn't mean they don't want it, but I had a kid a couple of weeks ago who I said, how's it going? Do you like golf? And she says, no, I'm forced to play golf. And that just breaks my heart at 16. Why are you forced to play golf? Well, and your dad played. No, he never played. And so how is school going? Well, it stinks. Well, why does it stink? Well, I don't know. I don't like my school. So we're thinking of transferring. Oh, where are you going to transfer to? Well, we're just going to go online so I can play more golf.
Oh, man.
Right?
Man, that makes me sad. When I think of golf specifically, I can imagine, I'm not a golfer, but I can imagine that if I were a golfer, I would really want my kid to play golf, just because I would love the excuse to spend more time with my kid. Like, I could see that side of it. If I were a golf parent, I would be like, all I want is for her to be good enough that I could spend, it'd be an excuse for us to spend 2 hours together once a week or once every couple of weeks. I get that. Like, because that's what I foresee with teaching my daughter sports. Is I was like, I selfishly am like, I would love if we could spend the day skiing together and have all that time on lifts to talk. That would just be this wonderful time I get to have with her. But I would hope that I would have the introspection to understand that she is not having a good time with it. Like, that seems real sad.
And that was the case. Was, of course, I was like, well, what's going on? Well, he's talking to me the whole way there about what I need to do and what I didn't do. And, and she's like, he's sucked all the fun out of it, which is what, as we know, that's when the kids start opting out. And what we know, 70% of kids opt out of sports altogether now by age 13. Girls are dropping out at twice the rate of boys. Why? Because they're not having fun. Why? Because we've sucked all the fun out of it, and we put all these rules in, and it has to be formal, and it has to be for a trophy, and then we have to be trying to get, my daughter's playing 18 and volleyball, and she has zero desire to play in college. And I've had multiple people say, well, why is she still playing then? Because it's fun.
Yeah, because everyone's told it. Now the expectation is you've reached a certain level in high school, and that well, you're already here. If you don't put in the extra effort to try to get to play in college, then you're leaving an opportunity on the table, and that I can understand that. Like every stage you get to in the club season, there's always another stage, and there's always and I can understand not wanting to lose maybe the friend group that you're in that might be going to that next level. And so there's a social pressure, and even if you're not enjoying the sport,
but what we know is if you're active at 23, you're 10 times more likely, 50% more likely to be active for life. So we want athletes for life who, like your wife, are going to try surfing and try skiing and try being an athlete and seeing yourself as an athlete. That's the win, because then less anxiety, less depression, less overwhelm, less opting out, less needs to feel alone, because you've been there, you've competed, you've understand what it takes to win, what it takes to lose. How do I get through the down times? Because their life is all about that. There's never going to be this time where it's just, flatline high, right?
Right. Yeah. What you said at the beginning really has stuck with me, that the parents that have achieved the highest levels are the most kind of understanding of what you'd want a kid to be. But like I'm lucky that my wife is like that she couldn't care less about pushing my daughter into anything. It is all just, let's just try to figure out what she likes, and then we'll double down on it. Like the moment she decides that she likes snowboarding more than skiing, she gets to snowboard more than she skis. Like it's all about just keeping their mind in a happy place.
This Netflix right now called Long Shot, and they follow the PGA guys. And last night's episode was Scotty Scheffler and Brooks Koepka. And one was clearly parented that you need to win. You got to focus on the win. You got to be number one. And one was parented as, are you having fun? Yeah. And one's number one in the world. And the other guy won a few and now can't quite get back there. Right. And you can see it so clearly, like just watching the episode, I'm like, it's so obvious. One is like driving like this, like trying to get his way back, and everything is not enough, not enough, not enough. And the other one's like, I'm having fun. It's like, that was actually really cool to play in front of 1 million people. Oh, I won. Oh, awesome. Right. Like, wow. It's even at that level, right? So let's talk about your pro athletes, these ones that are going for the gold and experiencing that. What do you see in their mindset about how they approach this? Because it's a long journey, right? Just to make the national team and to put yourself in contention to get the gold, to go to Paris. So I'm sorry, I'm naive. Is Germany qualified yet, or
not yet? We still have a real important tournament coming in June, so that will be our big chance. So still have
right before the Olympics.
A hill to climb, right?
Yeah.
And so the mindset is for the athletes, as you would know, is different athlete to athlete. There are some athletes that are really intrinsically motivated by national pride. So that's a big deal in the United States. You'd be surprised to learn that's not a big deal in Germany. Like doing it for your country, not a big thing for them. It's not, they don't wear it as this huge achievement like in other countries. You go to China, and a lot of them are purely motivated by the financial rewards of getting there. I mean, of course, the gold medal is great, but for them, a lot of it's about money and getting money for their families.
For the women?
Yeah, it's relatively lucrative for the. I'll give you an example. So just to blow your mind. So in America just won a gold medal in women's volleyball, as you know. So all Olympians in America, when they win a gold medal, I think that they get, it used to be $40,000. That's your bonus. Like every Olympian gets $40,000. That's not nothing. That's a great little chunk of money, right? Every player, all 14 players on my Olympic team in Rio, when we won a gold medal, got $2.7 million.
Whoa.
So, yeah, but they make, otherwise they make $30,000 a year. So $30,000 a year, not much, right? They don't get paid very much for that. And that's in their club season. And Or
Do they have
that's, yeah, with the
sponsorships? Do
club
they have
team.
like NIL? Do they have, are they getting,
No, 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 no. It's one of the nice things. Like the Chinese uniform is pure, like no big sponsors everywhere. It's just Adidas, and that is it. But yeah, it's but you're only incentivized to be the best. So that's just for like gold medals. Um,
Wow.
and so, yeah, it can be really lucrative. So for them, it matters. Like we talk about when I was with the Dutch team and, the Dutch girls who all speak 4 languages, right? Who all have, like 3 of them have master's degrees. They're all studying for something on the side. They all have so much going on, in stark contrast to the Chinese that are just volleyball, volleyball, volleyball. The Dutch would talk about how there are teams out there for whom winning matters more. China being one of them, Serbia being another one. Like some of these powerhouses, it just matters more to them. If like for the Dutch girls, it's just a part of their life. It's not their whole life. And so for them, it's there's a different mindset there where they are kind of have to get their incentive from other places. For the Dutch, it was very much about being boxing above your weight class, like where they are this tiny country that has a big chip on their shoulder about being able to take down giants, even though they're the size of Tennessee, they can beat Team USA sometimes. Like that was a big deal for them.
Well, and it seems like that's their only way out, like to cash in too. So it kind of is, the analogy of being the kid on the street, that's the only way to get the full ride. So that's what I'm doing, or getting the pro contract, right? So they're more incentivized. I remember right when I graduated from William & Mary, I moved to Budapest, Hungary, and played a little bit, not at a super high level, but I remember going into those gyms and the women would have 6-pack abs. They would be jumping and touching 10-5 or whatever. And they'd have a 2-year-old on one hip and drinking a beer and smoking a cigarette. You'd be like, holy cow.
Yep.
But they get on the court and bouncing on the 5-foot line, like no big deal. Right? But
Yep.
they had this this is what we do.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what Serbia has, both things going for them. First of all, it's like it's a way to make money in an otherwise like rough country to make money in, and they're also the little scrappy underdog in a tiny country that talk about a country that values their sport. Like Serbia, like in so many sports, there are Serbians playing at the top level, and they are such a tiny country, but it is a country where like being good at being athletic is highly valued. And so it's just a little bit different.
Is the Dutch team are everybody about the same height now? Like I'm just in Kansas City and I was just floored I'm 5'11" and I felt so short. And the number of women that are 6'5" and the men that are 7 feet that were walking around this convention center, right? And when I lived in Holland, everybody assumed I was Dutch. They're like, oh, well, you're Dutch. And when I lived in Sweden, no, you're Swedish, right? Because I was tall. But like the men's national team I heard a while ago was like the average height was 6'8". Is the Dutch women's team that tall too now? Yeah.
Yeah, not all that tall. Like, honestly, the Dutch team is no taller than my Chinese team, honestly. I mean, just because China is such an enormous country that there are a ton of 6'4" girls in China, and way more than there are in Holland. But yes, the percentage in Holland is great. My wife, who's like I mentioned 6'4", she loved Holland because it was her first time. She doesn't get gawked at everywhere. Living in China, she can't stand standing out. Where everybody just is constantly looking and snapping pictures and stuff. So
that's what I had in Japan too.
It's generally very tall. I was on a guy's podcast like 3 times, and then I met him in person, and he was like, Rett, I just assumed you were like 5'7". You're 6'2". He's like, I was like, that's because every picture I take, I'm surrounded by 6'4" women. Like I'm 6'3", 6'2". Like he said, that's it. That's it.
That's awesome. Oh, very good. All right. So what advice would you have to parents who are on the front end of this? I talked to a lot of, that are, well, let's not even call it the front end. Their kids are in high school. They want to play at the next level. What is your advice to, how do you support your athlete to help them if they have dreams, not you, but if they have dreams to get to potentially the college level or potentially the national team level?
Well, first of all, read your book. That would be advice number one. I mean, that's just that that goes without saying. Second of all, I think it's a lot about listening to your kid, like seeing where you just got to keep your ears open. And by the way, I'm saying this as somebody that just has a 4-year-old, so I know there's a bunch of people out there right now who are just going to discount everything I say because I've not been through the thick of it. But from a coaching standpoint, it is. I can understand if you get into that, into that club thing where you just have to keep reaching the next levels and stuff. I think you want to find the coaches and the opportunities where you're going to find coaches that care more about the experience rather than the wins. And I know that's probably cliche to say and maybe really, really difficult to do. I'm hoping that I think there are more and more coaches that approach things like warm up like I do. I hear from more and more of them on social media. That's one of the benefits. I only started doing Instagram really like a year or so ago, but what I hear from other coaches, even at the like elite levels, like the Team Serbia coach and the Team USA coach, say, Rett, it's easier for me to treat warm ups as a place to play and to have fun when we see that you've done it with a team that won a gold medal doing it. And I'm hoping that we can kind of spread this idea that coaches won't be looked down on for having warm-ups that look messy. They won't be looked down on for not doing the same prescribed crawls and skips and jumping jacks that are just the norm. And I think keep athletes kind of just, anytime they're doing the same movement patterns over and over again, you're going to run into these problems. And even low impact movement patterns like you'd see in a generic warm up. My advice is to seek out those coaches that believe in messiness and in the importance of how children grow in a messy environment. Easier said than done, I'm sure.
100%. I love what you said, and I agree wholeheartedly. When I have parents ask me that, I say, also, I would love to start a little revolution that, this youth, when I was writing the book, it said it was a $20 billion business in the United States. I just looked it up as I was getting ready to speak this week, 37.5 billion. So just in the last 3 years, they say by 2030, it'll be a $50 billion business. It's not going away. As parents and as, coaches, we need to find ways that, again, are not just about getting on the podium. I think all coaches, particularly youth sports coaches, should be evaluated by how many kids sign up the next year. Yeah. I had the cutest experience in Kansas City. As I said, I coached a little 9 and 10-year-olds for the last 4 years. And I was sitting down to watch now some 14s. And all of a sudden, out of the corner of my eye, this pack of girls comes running at me. And it was the girls that I'd coached 4 years ago. And they were now 14. And they were like, hi. And one of the moms was like, oh, they were so excited to see you. They thought, oh, this is so cool. Like, we have a celebrity at the court. Like, I mean, it just made my heart so full that they didn't see her and thought, oh God, she's there, but they wanted to come say hello, right? To me, no, we didn't win any tournaments, but we had fun. And I hope that they had fun. And I hope that they walked away from that experience. And here they are 4 years later, still playing. That's what, to me, the whole thing is about.
What a testament to your coaching. Like that's incredible. And I feel like going back, I should talk from a strength and conditioning standpoint because that's my job. That I think you also to find, if you're a parent of a young athlete, that it is possible to find strength and conditioning for children that is nothing like you're imagining it. I was asked to write a program for a kind of a sports school in China. And I had for all of their kind of 12 and under that traditional plyometrics, like jumping up on boxes and jumping down on stuff like that, I scrapped it all. Instead, I put together this parkour program where the kids would learn like fun vaults over fences and stuff that I imagine them on schoolyards, like doing cat jumps over fences and lazy vaults and being able to jump and balance on a hedge, on a fence and stuff like that. And that's what I want, like, because I wanted kids coming in saying, I'm so close to getting the jumbo cat vault. Can we do jumbo cat vaults today? Because there's a perfect wall at school that I'm going to just, every jaw will drop if I can do a cat vault over this thing, and it's whatever. So, and I took out a lot of traditional strength training. I wanted kids building like a sack of party tricks almost. Like I wanted them being able to do like boys being able to do an iron cross. I have rings behind me I can see, but being able to do like an iron cross on the rings. You'll never have a better chance of being able to do an iron cross than when you're like 7 years old. And you're just whip light and you get that strength early. You actually don't lose it. And that's something kids love to work towards more than just, I want to put another plate on the bar. Instead of traditional weights, we just have a bunch of really absurdly heavy, oddly shaped like medicine ball, like sandbags. And it was just it was like feats of strength. You got to put it up on that ledge. You get to put it up on that ledge. You sign your name on that ledge. Like our jump contests are to dunk hoops. We just put a series of Nerf dunk hoops at crazy levels. And when you got to, when you dunked on one, you got to move up to the next one. And that's the way we incentivize you to get plyometrics in. We had trapezes across the top. And if you could jump to hang on the highest trapeze, you got to sign your name on the rafter above. And we just come up with ways that athletes just intrinsically want to come back in and strength train. And it's because it's fun, it's engaging, it is achievement oriented, it's social, you're cheering for each other. And I think I would advise parents, those places exist. And you can follow them on social media and do some of it yourself. But if you want your kid to have a long life playing sport and enjoying it, you don't want them hurting. Like that's a quick way to hate playing it. You could ask my wife, who's now here, right here, that if you want to fall out of love of sport, have every landing hurt a little bit in your knee or your lower back. And so it does behoove you to get strength training early and develop those patterns in a way that is fun for the kid.
I know of a club coach who only allowed the girls who could touch 10 feet to do the jump test. Everybody else, you weren't even allowed to try it if you couldn't touch a certain height. What? Like, they're 16. Why are you not? I mean, like what you're talking about, turn parenting on its head. And instead of saying, don't jump off of there, don't do that. Like, yes, actually allow them to go try it, right? Like that to me is so mind-boggling.
It's a foreign concept
right?
to me. Like, I'm someone also that has a philosophy. There are some coaches that pride themselves on having a very stepwise progressions and regressions to a lot of exercises. I'm the guy that's like, oh, no. Here's the hardest level of this exercise. Let me see you fail at that. Let me see you smile and maybe get frustrated and fall down a bunch of times. And then next week when I bring this, or maybe in 2 weeks when I bring the same challenge back, maybe I'll give you a regression to it. But I love, I don't need them to look perfect and everything. I love, my athletes are actually really good at self-organizing. And I think that a lot of coaches don't give their athletes enough time to just fail and self-organize. And they spend too much time on a low-level regression to an exercise that really only gets you benefit up here. I think by doing the hardest version of it, you get back to the hardest version of it faster. And so
that's such a good point, because I feel like they set, this is what the bar is, and if you don't hit it, that's failure. Instead of that's the pinnacle, but there are like 20 steps in between, and let's get to halfway first. But there we are at the top, but why not try for half first? And then I feel like it's possible, and then I keep working on it versus there's no way I can get up there, so I'm out. Yeah, and I think that's what a lot of kids are doing.
Yeah, and you're missing an opportunity to kind of, in failure, there's vulnerability. And when I am demonstrating this highest progression, maybe I'm falling all over myself. Like there's a vulnerability there that I think connects me with my athletes. I think it connects them with themselves. Like when elite volleyball players who are medal contenders, can't hula hoop in front of each other, there is something in that breaks that makes them smile and laugh and brings this team together a little bit in a way that everyone's still getting warm, and we're still mobilizing hips in a way that clearly hasn't been done before because they're terrible at it. There's a rhythm there that hasn't been hit that is great for sport. That we've uncovered some problems in their movement ability. Like let's like, let's explore this. Like, let's make sure that when they're failing, we make it a super positive experience, that it's all laughter and no, like, and if I can do that, I know I'm doing my job okay.
I want to come work out with you. And I don't even have a goal anymore. Like,
welcome.
Right? I've seen you on your Instagram. Have you gotten Iron Cross yet? You're getting very close.
That's why these are out here. And unfortunately, here's what I realized, that I had to take a big step back in my Iron Cross training when I had to be wearing tons of layers and snow boots doing it. That when I was in Southern California, I felt like I was getting a little bit close because I had no shoes on and just like a t-shirt and shorts. Out here, I am humbled. Like, I'm starting from scratch, but I'm hoping when I get back to Southern California in a couple weeks that all the clothes come off and I feel light as a feather and I can hit it. But no, it's a year-long goal, so I feel like I'm already ahead of it. But
I love that.
Thank you for asking. It's coming along. I'll be super excited if I can get it.
And I love, parents, what is your goal that's putting you outside of your comfort zone, right? Have something. We think we can accomplish a lot less in a week than we can, and we can accomplish a lot more in a year. We set two smaller goals for a year and two bigger goals for a week. But when you look at how do I chunk away at this book took 7 years, right? Like, it was but it was one of those, like, I know this is going to be worth it. So I was willing to do the work. Now I've got some other ideas. We've been working on a few things of how do I take this to the next level. It's a little bit scary, but it's also what makes it fun. And that's what we want our kids to be having too, right? So, wow, I've taken up way too much of your time.
I think, Kirsten, you said on one thing that I think is so important, and you're right, is that your kids absolutely need to see you fail. They need to see you be fit. They need to see that you can have fun being fit. Like, I try to demonstrate that for my daughter. I'm always delighted when she tells her friends that her dad just exercises for a living and eats vegetables. Like, that's always like something I get a big kick out of. But I try to make, especially when she's watching, like, I'm trying to make all of this work seem like something that is actually kind of fun. And I love when she gets up there and she jumps on the rings and we do a whole nother set of stuff. We just see how long she can hang while I spin her. Like, I wind up the rings as much as we can. We call it a smoothie. So she does the hanging smoothie. And it's depending on what she's wearing is what flavor smoothie it is. So if she's wearing her pink snowsuit, it'll be our strawberry smoothies. And we just wind her up and see if she can hold on for 30 seconds while that thing unspools.
That's awesome.
So it's all
what
good.
We know.
Just try to create that culture.
What you have to look forward to are the teenage years, to which they will listen to nothing of what you say, but they're still watching everything you do. And then now I'm getting to the other side where I had my 23-year-old regurgitate something that I said to him 5 years ago. And he's like, well, just like you always say, Mom, be comfortable being uncomfortable. And I'm like, oh, so you were taking notes, right? So even, if you're in the middle of that phase, parents, where they don't listen to anything I say, and I've already said this 10 times, and that's why we all need coaches like you who have no skin in the game, but to help them get better at their physical part of it. And that's what I love being as a coach on the mindset piece, where, again, I just want you to be your best version of yourself. I may say what your parents say, but I'll put a little bit of a different spin on it. And if it helps you get to where you want to go, we all win, right?
Right. Yep. Couldn't have said it better myself.
Okay. So one last question and then I'll let you go. You got to get working on your Iron Cross. What, if I just give you this phrase, we ask all of our guests this, how would you finish this statement? The best athletes I know do this. It could be a sentence, it could be a word, it can be whatever comes to mind. The best athletes I know do this.
Boy, I love this. Give me a second because I want to come. Let's see what my authentic answer would be.
Take your time.
I think the best athletes I know are dedicated to their sport because they still love their sport. It might not be true. That actually, as I said, I'm thinking of all of the gold medalists I know in China that can't stand their sport, that are absolutely the best athletes in what they do. So I can't say that. But I think the best athletes I know, if I'm being completely honest, have found a way to to keep practicing. Maybe even when it isn't fun anymore. If I'm being completely honest, at the highest level, I think the best athletes that I have seen have found motivation to keep practicing, and maybe even far past when it is as fun as it was when they were a kid.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a sad way to end this, but I'm thinking of China. All I'm thinking of is China right now, and those are the best I've ever worked with. The Chinese athletes, not just in volleyball, but I worked with diving, gymnastics, weightlifting, some of their gold medal factories. That just being able to put in a lot of hours into this, but finding a way to put in all the hours that it requires to be the absolute best is what is the reason that they're so great.
And so parents listening, is that your goal, right? And I think that's a good way to talk about that, which is, I think there are some parents who would care less about this book or this podcast because they're focused on only the highest pinnacle to perhaps the demise of their child's mental health. And if that's good on you, but how do you want to make, and what I hear you saying, Rhett, is the whole journey's got to be fun. If you want to stick with it and you want to have, what you're doing with your daughter already at 4, right, is giving her smoothie experience. She's going to remember that. She's not going to remember, the bus rides or whatever, the court time about the team, all those things on the court. She's going to remember the off the court stuff. At least that's what I remember at William & Mary. I remember very few matches. I remember all the bus rides, all the time that we were, joking with each other, staying up late, being, having great teammates that I'm still in touch with, that I'm still working with to this day because she was such a great friend. Like that's what this journey is about for me. Amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. I as much as I would be happy if my daughter played any sport, I really love for her to play a team sport because I do love all the camaraderie and yeah, like you said, all the fast friends you make that are forged through sport, I think are special friends.
So where can people find you so they can follow along so we can watch the Germans qualify for Paris?
I like everything you're saying. You already mentioned Retosaurus is my Instagram handle. I'm trying to be better about posting. I'm definitely going to, especially as I'm on vacation right now, I'm not posting as much. But once the season starts, April 15th, I already have so many fun things planned for my team to showcase more and more ways. Because I know a lot of coaches kind of wonder how you Rhett, I would love to do this, but I'm just not as creative as you are. I steal creativity from so many people on social media. So feel free to steal from me. I'm stealing from other people. I have a list of fun stuff I'm going to make my German athletes do in the next starting April 15th. So that's when I'll really ramp it up again. So Retosaurus on Instagram. Retosaurus on Instagram.
Fabulous. Well, I can't wait to follow along. And when I get back into coaching little ones, I'm going to steal all of your ideas because that's what this whole thing is about, is having fun. So thank you so much for making the time on your vacation to talk with us. Parents, you like this, share it. Share with your coaches, share with your youth sports coaches. So, we can find new ways. When we know better, we do better. Let's help each other. We can keep sharing this and getting the word out, that we can make this a better experience for all of us, the parents, the coaches, and the athletes. Let's do this. Hey, welcome to the after party. Kirsten and Matt here. We're going to tear down the session it's a great discussion that we had with Rett Larson. I enjoyed it so much, and particularly since he's in the world that I grew up in, and then having lived overseas and lived in different countries and then hearing his philosophies, it was just so much fun and I learned so much. What were your big takeaways, Matt?
First of all, his energy is contagious. Like, I remember I was sitting at my desk editing it and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to get out and go play. Like, I just want to play, and that's all he's about. And I was loving his energy and his genuine passion for what he does. And that's one of those things that I think people take for granted, is when you can really tell that somebody's very, very passionate about what they did.
Yes.
And one of the main takeaways that he had was just his philosophy of, enjoying everything that they do, which is influenced into his warm-ups. So tell us a little bit about what he was talking to you about, his warm-ups.
Yeah. And you see this, like there's a lot of studies coming out of like Norway. He's worked in Holland and Germany, and then obviously China, but in other places outside of the United States where we've created this funnel where we think that we really have the pyramid inverted, and we have specializing at the bottom, and we're trying to create a great volleyball player, soccer player, baseball player, whereas the rest of the world is building great athletes in Norway, who per capita has the most Olympians in the world for the winter sports. They don't even do anything competitive, I want to say, until 16 or 17. Like it's not even an option. Everybody is just allowed to play and participate. And what they're doing is creating great athletes. And so his focus on functional movement and training and learning how to use your body in different ways, which goes back to what we talk about on the podcast a lot, which is why it's so important to play multiple sports. Because without thinking about it, which is the best, I mean, it's like learning a language. When you learn a second language at 4, 5, or 6, it's not work. It's just what you do. When you start to try to learn a language at 20, it's hard. I tried to learn Japanese in college. It was very painful, right? But when you it's just something that, I just squat with my legs and I touch the floor and I do these things that they don't even need to know why they do them. But using their body in different ways becomes very, very advantageous in the long run.
Yeah. And, I think it's kind of hard to imagine building a soccer player, a volleyball player for life, but they're building athletes for life. And that's the important thing. That's going to be what keeps people active for longer. And it's going to be what keeps people healthier for longer. And it's going to keep people alive for longer.
Yeah.
And it's going to make a better lifestyle for them. So one of the things that he started from a young age was saying, debunking the myth that kids can't lift, and saying, start doing functional lifting. How did he describe that in the podcast with you? Yeah.
So he has now a 4-year-old daughter, and he was talking about just doing something as simple as, he's like, we have a bag of rice. I just see if you can put the rice on the table, right? Like just doing things that, again, it doesn't need, you don't have to sign up to go to a gym or go to a class. And that's the other thing, unfortunately, this generation, like we're teaching them that the only way to learn is by signing up for a coach or a trainer or being on a team, versus setting up an obstacle course in the backyard and hopping over the lawn chair and running around the swimming pool 5 times or whatever you've got in your world, right? I mean, which is the childhood that we had as kids, where you would go outside and ride your bike and learn how to jump over the thing, or you go skiing and learn how to go off the ramp, or, the ski jump. Anymore, kids aren't getting creative and learning how to use their body in different ways.
Yeah. And it's also, he talked about like jumping off the stairs, and how he was like, if we started a 2-year-old jumping off the 2nd step, and every year, by 5, he's jumping off the 5th step in the staircase. Yeah. Bulletproof knees, never a concern for the ACL. And it's like, we're not, you want to build, how many parents are, holding their kid in the first days and go, you're going to be winning the World Cup one day. And, he is building an athlete that is, or kid, helping his kid become whatever athlete they want to be, and just a healthy human being.
Think too, from a perspective of just as a, fear and lack of fear, just by trying those things, you're also inoculating yourself against fear. Oh, I can jump 2 inches. Oh, I can jump 5 inches. Oh, I can jump 12, then you watch these kids build and build and build that, this is just what I do. But it's not about this story in your head that I need to be able to jump this high in order to play this sport. It's just, this is just another thing I do. Yeah.
Yeah. And, I think you talked about it, just getting comfortable being uncomfortable and taking risk in low risk environment, and that's the nature of it. And last thing we'll talk about is Rhett's warm-ups, which he's almost becoming famous for at this point.
I think so. In fact, after we finish recording, which I wish I had it on, but one of my heroes is Karch Karai, who played in the 88, 92 Olympics and the 96 beach. And now he's the women's national team coach for volleyball. And he's legendary for his work ethic and his mindset. And I asked him after we stopped recording, so why aren't you working with the women's team? He said, oh, that's funny. Karch just reached out and we had lunch when I was in LA. And he said, and I was like, this is the cutest story. He said, oh, Karch told me, he goes, we're at tournaments and we see you working with your teams and we're just watching what you're doing with the teams. And we're thinking, I want to have what he's having, right? So he is being noticed by all the top teams for what he's doing. And what's so interesting about it is it the foundation is fun. He's like, yeah, let the chickens out or chase the balloons, or it's not this like super technical, serious, like he's having them do. Everybody, you should definitely check out Rett without an H, his Instagram. The videos are awesome about, again, these are 20 to 25 to 30-year-old women. When I'm coaching 9 and 10-year-olds, like those are the ideas that I have. And I get told, no, we don't have time for that. We just have to focus on the drills. We just have to get the volleyball involved. Well, if I'm 9 and 10 and I'm not laughing and walking out of there going in the car ride home, wow, that was so much fun. What are the odds that I'm going to want to do this in 2 or 3 or 5 years, right? So keeping it fun is the name of the game that he always talks about, which I'm sensing a theme here. Steve Kerr, the people that keep coming back. CJ talked about why I still play at 23 is because I'm having fun. And we've been sacrificing fun for this mastering the game focus, which do you really master it if you're not even enjoying it?
At a young age, I think it's next to impossible. I mean, when you strip the fun out of sports at a young age, you don't stand a chance of whatever your parents' dreams are for you to go on and be the professional. There's not a chance of that happening if you're not going to be enjoying it from a young age.
Scotty Scheffler just won his second, Masters golf. He's at 27. He's like, it's really about fun for me. Yes, it's nice to win, but that's not what I focus on. I love the game and I want to get better. And every time I go out there, I think, gosh, I've done the work. Now I just need to go let the club do the job that I've been, the repetitions that I've been giving it. So the more we can focus on that, parents, particularly those with younger kids, make sure you're checking in with them, having fun. I was talking to some parents yesterday who were driving 2 hours to practice each way because that was supposedly the best coach. But now the son at 14 hates it. So think about that. Like, is it worth it if they're not going to even like it in 6 or 12 months or a year or 3?
And what 14-year-old wants to be cooped up in a car for 4 hours a day? Right?
Because that's the best coach. And the dad said, I know. He goes, I know, we made the wrong choice. Everybody's saying, you got to go to this coach. Go with, yes, you need fundamentals. Yes, you need somebody who understands the game, but somebody who's keeping it fun over, we're going to Cooperstown, we're going to win it all. Like, that's not the highest value for them right now. The highest value, where are my friends? Where can I go and have a good time and laugh and learn and be curious about getting better?
Yeah.
Amen.
Amen to that.
All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. We love doing this. We're having so much fun. Keep liking and sharing. Send us your questions. You can respond to the Substack. If you're not following me on Substack, jump on my website. You can sign up for that. We love to get feedback. So send us your notes, send us your questions. Anything hits home or you want to hear more of, let us know. So thanks so much. We've got this.